The following podcast contains movie spoilers, unpopular opinions, outdated pop cultural references, and occasional f***ing language. Listener discretion is advised. In 3, 2, 1.
And rolling sound, quiet.
Speak.
Good day, good world. You're listening to Subgenre, a podcast about the movies. I'm your host, Josh Dasal. On Subgenre, the major categories are out, the more specific ones are in, and for Season 1, that has meant delving into the ballast and bombast of submarine movies. In today's show, the last full episode of our inaugural season, we are back to conclude our look at one of the most mispronounced films in cinema history. It stars Beverly Hills Cop 2 alumnus Jürgen Prochnow in a film by Emmy-winning director Wolfgang Petersen. Gibraltar, here we come. This is the finale of Das Boot, the director's cut. And joining me once again via Zoom from somewhere near Hollywood adjacent, is screenwriter and film buff Steve Baumgartner. Welcome back, Steve.
Thank you, Josh. Hi, everybody.
So we've been talking a whole lot about a whole lot of movie, Das Boot. I have been enjoying the heck out of this conversation.
Likewise. For a movie I've seen so many times, just hearing you go through it is actually making it a better experience for me.
I had not seen this movie in, I don't know, it's got to have been 10, 15 years or something. The last time I watched this all the way through from start to finish. And so the chance to go back and watch it again, it was a new experience all over again. It was kind of nice.
How did you come upon this movie? Was it a film school thing or
no?
Did it just...
I think what it was I sort of came of age movie-wise in the early to mid 90s. And that was right about the time that indie film thing was really hitting its stride. And so that was the early days of, Tarantino with Reservoir Dogs. And that was the early days of Kevin Smith. And that was, all those people that sort of came out at about the same time and were making cool movies. That made me want to work in a video store. And so I went and worked in a video store for a while, which still to this day is the best job I have ever had. I would go back and do it in a heartbeat. I'm pretty sure that it was during that time period that I was introduced to this movie because this was a movie that people who were serious about film really seemed to like.
Interesting. It's definitely, like we mentioned last week, or last episode.
Has it been a week? Has it been a week?
I know.
Every minute is like a year, Steve. I know.
We talked about how in the 80s, this was sort of the lingua franca. Everybody knows this foreign movie if they know a foreign movie in America.
Sure.
And somebody on the commentary had mentioned that year after year, it was the most popular video as well. So that even though stuff might have come afterwards that made a footprint, say, Wings of Desire or something, it was still Das Boot. It really had hung on.
It hung on for a long time. And I think, too, it was also, some of the lasting attention, certainly, and also affection for this movie is not just because it's an awesome movie, because it is, and not just because it has some quirkiness about it that's very memorable, which it does. But I think it's also just the fact that there's 6 or 8 or 12 or 19 versions of this thing that keep coming out over and over and over again. And so it's sort of like, remasters of different, old records or whatever. It's like, well, I got to have, the Beatles in mono and stereo. I may as well have the Das Boot director's cut and the Uber Duber director's cut.
I can't wait till it's formatted for TikTok. I think that's where it's really going to shine.
That's the future. Oh, man. Well, we only have so much time in this universe and so much more film to go. So let's jump back into talking about this film. And by the way, everybody, if you have not yet listened to our previous episode number 8, where we start this film, please stop now, go listen to that episode, or you're going to be severely lost as to what comes next. But if you are with us now, it is time to go back to our feature presentation. When we last left this film, Werner, our correspondent who has been traveling on this ship and has been experiencing things for the first time that he has never experienced and has been experiencing terror like he has never seen before, had crawled himself following a big attack on the boat and depth charges and shaking and near death, had crawled himself into a bunk to go to sleep. And we rejoin him as he awakens after all of this bombast and terror. He awakens to silence and relative peacefulness. And it's very, very different than what he crawled into bed in the fetal position experiencing before.
Is it me, or is that a weird way to kind of resolve the situation? I mean, I guess it prevents the anticlimax if we can't do anything except hope they don't hit us and then they go away. But I don't know that I would get any sleep if I were him.
No, definitely not. I can't get to sleep if there's a loud motorcycle that goes by outside. I'm certainly not going to sleep with the depth charges. But he manages to get some sleep, because when he wakes, it's 6 hours later and the destroyers are gone. The two that were there that were raining charges down on them somehow have missed the target, and the boat has survived. And the captain gets the chance to tell Werner, oh yeah, hey buddy, don't worry. They didn't kill us after all. And
thumbs up.
Thumbs up, right? That's the thing you want to hear. That's good. You're not dead.
The afterlife is not stuck with these 47 guys in a tube.
That's right. This is not it. We are alive. They feel safe enough to surface the boat. And so surfacing the boat means that they get to go up and see these ships that their torpedoes, those first three, boom, 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 did hit, and they have blown away essentially 2 of the 3 boats that they hit. They're gone. There's a third boat that's still sitting there on the surface and refuses to sink, even though it's on fire and bent in half. And so they decide, we're going to finish this thing off and sink it to the bottom of the ocean. And they go and ready a torpedo and, loose and fire the torpedo, and off it goes, hits this flaming hulk of a mess that's sitting out there in the ocean. The problem is that they discover too late there are still men on board.
That's another weird thing about that, how we go from, I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to wake up later, because I don't know, do they say how much time it's been?
6 hours.
6 hours. Is the thinking of the captain, people who listen to the previous episode know that I don't have the sharpest mind for military tactics. Is it just the assumption that somebody must have come back to take care of these people? Because once the Germans see that these people, whatever chance they had of survival is now gone at the hands of their torpedoes, there's a metaphor, they regret it.
I'm pretty sure that in that scene, the captain or somebody, up there on the tower with him says something to that effect, like, why are they still here?
Yeah.
Where are the boats to pick them up, or something along those lines? And so it is a surprise to everyone, because the expectation is, if you have not sunk, then you potentially have gotten out of Mayday. And if you've gotten out of Mayday, then somebody is going to come pick you up. They're not going to let you just sit out there and burn and sink to the ocean if they can help it. But in this case, that didn't happen.
I was really kind of surprised that this guy who really knew, an experienced sailor, made that assumption.
That they would be picked up?
Yeah. Well, anybody can make a mistake.
There were 2 destroyers up there. There were 2. And they eventually got done with whatever they were doing because they left. So I think it's a fair assumption that the destroyer, who is from the same Navy as the ship that's on fire out there, would make the circle and make sure that there's nobody to pick up. Whatever the case, that was the assumption. They fired this torpedo and too late discovered that there were guys still left on this ship. The ship is lit on fire. Guys are now on fire. They're jumping into the ocean. The ocean is filled with fuel. It's a bad situation altogether. And, really, as their only option, they start to swim toward the U-boat as a means of, may as well get taken prisoner versus, drowning and dying in the ocean. And in that moment, the decision is made, we can't pick these guys up. And they essentially back the sub away, dooming these poor bastards to drown and die. And that isn't a decision that is a cold, heartless decision on the rest of the crew. It affects the crew and it affects the captain.
Yet again, another thing that humanizes people who you might be predisposed to think of as the enemy.
There are scenes similar to this in some of the other movies that we've watched this season. I'm trying to remember exactly which one it was. It was probably The Enemy Below, but there is the moment where people are swimming toward the submarine, and in that movie, they are gunned down by the Nazis. These swimmers and the people on the lifeboats who are trying to come to them for help, they're gunned down in the ocean. In this case, it's backing the submarine away, but really the same effect. And back we go, onto the submarine, having just doomed all of these other guys out there in the ocean to the briny depths. We are at our 6th meal. We've been counting meals in the last episode. We're going to continue counting them in this one. We are at our 6th documented meal in the officer's mess. Unlike the others that have come before, everyone on this one is completely, downhearted and glum having seen this scene. There are radiograms that appear. Looks like there is another convoy that is under attack that other captains are pursuing. Our captain wants to pursue it, but he's in a position where he can't. After everything that has gone on, they've got no fuel left. Even if they had a straight line and knew